Hey guys, this is Melanie Hawk with Why Not Me Academy. I'm excited to have Alexa Carlin on today from Women Empower X. If you know Alexa's story, or if you've ever been to a Women Empower X conference, expo, whatever you want to call it, it is an awesome event where women gather who are trying to make a difference in the world, women in business. I love, love, love these events, and I really wanted to have Alexa on to talk about how her path has changed from when she had a 1% survival rate to what she's doing now to empower thousands and thousands of women each year through Women Empower X. So definitely stick around, and here's Alexa. Hey guys, this is Melanie Hawk with Why Not Me Academy. I am so excited to have Alexa with WEX here. She's going to tell us a little bit more about what WEX is. Women Empower X. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Thanks for being here, Alexa. I'm excited to do it. I have attended her events. I've spoken at her events. I've exhibited at her events, and she's got an awesome thing going on that I'm excited to talk about it. So, but let's get to know a little bit about your background first, Alexa. What even got you into where you are today with speaking and with event planning? Tell us a little bit about your background and your story.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much for supporting WEX and being part of it. We so appreciate it and having me on your podcast. So I have been an entrepreneur since I was younger, always figuring out ways to turn ideas into reality. But my first business when I was 17 years old, I found this company that was using fashion to help build schools in Africa. And it was an LA-based company. And I went on their website after purchasing their t-shirt, and I saw Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Zac Efron, all these celebrities were supporting this fashion line. And I really got inspired by what they were doing to basically they were trying to make or they were making villages self-sustainable through education. And I was in high school at the time. I was in a leadership role as president of my student body. And I just thought, well, they have t-shirts, they have these chocolate bars, they have these tote bags. Maybe I could design jewelry for them. And I was really passionate about the fashion industry. And that's always what I wanted to actually get into.
Uh-huh.
My whole life, I wanted to work in fashion. And so I pitched the idea, never heard back, pitched again, all the whole follow-up game until 4 months later. And long story short, I got on a conference call with the founder. I sold her on the idea. I became the sole licensee to design jewelry for this LA-based fashion company at 17 years old. I taught myself I found a factory in Taiwan. I made the packaging through Office Depot and designed it myself. I taught myself how to code and developed a website on web. So that was my first real dive into entrepreneurship. And it was when I was a senior in high school. And then I went to college at the University of Florida, and I was first selling all of these bracelets word of mouth. But then when you don't know anyone, word of mouth marketing is not the best strategy. And so I wasn't getting any hits on my website because I didn't know how to get people to find it. It was even before super social media world. And so I asked the founder if she could put my bracelets on her website, not realizing that was dropped. I just had this idea. So then I started getting orders from all over the world. And I would ride my bike to the post office after class because I didn't have access to a car. And I just grew that. And that led into seeing what was a big disconnect between myself getting to the next level and why so many people weren't going after their bigger dreams and goals, especially in college. You get sucked into this world. You want to fit in, you want to party, you want to do all the things. And, I realized the biggest thing was confidence in myself to talk about what I was doing. And I saw obviously so many other women and young, all were struggling with confidence.
Yeah.
So that's what led me to starting a blog with a mission to redefine perfection. And I started asking people their definition of perfect. And I would ask a ton of different people. And then I ended up through summer internships in New York City. Again, I was interning in the fashion world. I ran into different celebrities. I got definitions of perfect from Mark Cuban, Shaquille O'Neal, Steve Madden, Rebecca Minkoff, tons of different influential leaders and
Yeah.
thought leaders. And through that process, not only can you see that there's a different meaning for the word perfect, but also I started to gain that skill of confidence and started researching confidence. And then at 21 years old, while growing this blog, I had a near-death experience where a bacteria got into my bloodstream, started killing all of my organs. Within hours, I was induced into a medical coma, given a 1% chance of living.
What?
They told my mom, call your family. She has 24 hours to live. And that changed my entire life. And obviously, right now, with everything going on, there's a lot of post traumatic stress that's brought up because it
Yeah.
was the same symptoms: fever, chills. I couldn't breathe, survived on a ventilator. And it was definitely, I mean, I learned so much while in the coma, still remember everything I experienced in the coma, in the ICU. And then 6 months after this experience, still graduated college on time, moved to New York City, got my dream job working at InStyle magazine. And then I ended up getting sick again because
Oh,
all the antibiotics they were pumping in my body for so long, they destroyed my entire gut system.
yeah.
So then I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which has been the hardest thing to deal with. And it's chronic and it's something I go through every day. But that journey really led to the inspiration to share my story as a public speaker because I realized like every time I went to a conference or I was trying to heal myself through, listen to other motivational speakers because I was healing myself through my body, but also mentally through post traumatic stress. Um, every time I heard advice, it was always talking about the past, right? Here's what I went through as a child or through my relationship or through failures. And then here's what I did. And here's how you can overcome it too, or here's how you could be happy too. And I was always sitting there in the audience thinking like, that's great for you, but this is something I'm never going to be able to overcome. A
Yeah.
chronic illness, you can't overcome it. That's what really led me to get out of that victim mindset and stop asking myself, why did it happen to me? Why is this happening for me? Led me to the journey of trying to become a public speaker, which led into the inspiration for Woman in Power X.
Awesome. Awesome. And Alexa, I don't know how much you know of our backstory, but that's you like gave basically our mantra of, we instead of having the why me mentality, the why not me, like why not me to take this trial and turn it into a triumph in some way. So I love
I
that.
love that.
I love that you had that mindset and how different your path has been by switching that thought process. Like, of course it's like the whole event as a whole, but you could very easily say, I have an autoimmune disease, I'm not going to get on stage, I'm not going to take flights all over the country to go and share my story.
Mm-hmm.
Like what is it, what would you say is something that really changed your mindset of, no, like I'm going to beat this thing, like I'm going to go and share this with the world?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was waiting for a very long time, but then I was waiting for 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years. I mean, there was a period of basically a year where I was too sick to even leave my apartment. And at 22 years old, 23 years old, I was like, I cannot live the rest of my life like this. There's no way.
Yeah.
And I just got so sick and tired of waiting for something to change. And so that's what really, you have two options. Like you can allow yourself to be a victim of circumstance, or you could take the circumstances and take back control of your life. And so I stopped waiting to try until I got, back to where that picture perfect health that I was once, because that's really what I was waiting for. And I started to accept it and say, this is part of me, but it doesn't have to define what I can or cannot do. I will say, though, very vulnerably, there have been many times, especially when I was much sicker, that I would be so afraid driving to a speaking gig or an interview because I didn't know if I was going to be sick. And there's many times that I was sick. There
Yeah.
was times where I had to ask the event organizer if they can change up the schedule because I was too sick to go on in the morning.
Oh,
And that's hard, especially when I'm like just starting out, you don't want to do that. And it's hard also because when people look at you, they don't see anything wrong. And so
yeah.
it's this invisible illness. And that was also a struggle. And I think that's really why I also wanted to share about it, because I felt less alone if I actually shared vulnerably what I was going through so people could at least understand.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you had this thing about perfection before this all happened, and then it's like you had to reestablish yourself and find, what that meant, like, wholeheartedly in your new life, and trying to realize, I can't get back to where I was, but I can get back
Mhm.
to something even better. Like, who says, it's not better? It's harder for sure, but because you were able to take this challenge and really take it to learn from it, I think that's pretty amazing. Now, I don't for those who don't know a ton of
Thanks.
about autoimmune disorders like myself, now is that something you kind of mentioned that it ties into the antibiotics? Is that kind of, do they know where it comes from, your autoimmune disease? Is that disorder?
Yeah, disease. Well, there's so many different autoimmune diseases. So everyone's a little bit different, but basically what it is it's your cells fighting against it itself. That's why it suppresses your immune system. Because your body's basically fighting your own body. So for me, I have ulcerative colitis. That does not run in my family because you could have it because of genes, this type of autoimmune. Um, but what a lot of doctors, they can say for sure, but when you have trauma to your body, and a heavy dose of antibiotics for a long period of time, it could cause that because it again wipes out all your good gut flora. So that's what I believe happened. Some doctors say like it could have been sitting dormant inside my body without me even knowing, but with it, it is very chronic. There's flares, and when you have a flare, like you literally can't do anything. A lot of people don't realize that I was very, very sick up until really 2017. I started to feel better, and it was really 2018, 2019 was when I started getting my full life back.
Wow.
Of course, there's days here and there, but I'm the healthiest I've been in the past 7 years. And what people don't realize is that I registered the company WEX in August of 2015. And our first event was of October of 2016. That full year, I was so sick. I basically started WEX from my bedroom. Like I was very sick. But, again, what other option do you have?
That's crazy because you look at the size of some of your events, your WEX events, and it's like, oh, this has been around, like, but to realize you were still sick to just 2 years ago, 1 year ago, like you're still getting
Hmm.
back to where you can have full control of your life. Like, that's crazy because you really have done so much greatness with WEX. So tell us a little bit more about WEX, the mission behind it, and what it is.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. So WEX, I started because I saw such a big disconnect among women. When I was speaking at events, I just saw I was speaking to all millennials or all women further along in the career or all women part of one specific industry.
Yeah,
And when I would meet people after my engagements and learn more about their story, I would say, do you know this person? Do you know this person? And nobody knew each other. And these were like local events. And I thought that was just so crazy. So, um, that combined with the inspiration to take my online community offline, because when I was sick, I went live on Periscope when Periscope launched back in like 2014,
oh yeah,
2015.
yeah,
Um, and I built an amazing community of support, and I really wanted and needed that support in person. And
yeah,
I believe that community fuels empowerment. When you feel supported, you feel like you can do anything.
yeah.
And so those two things combined really inspired the idea behind WEX. And our mission is to create an inclusive and diverse community of women that truly collaborate versus compete. And we empower them to take action on their goals, on their dreams, and feel supported doing that. So it's definitely grown from its original concept. We started as a Woman in Power Expo, and then people always kept on saying it's more than an expo, it's an experience. So that's where the X comes in
Okay.
to exemplify experience. And WEX WEX. That came from the community too. People just started calling it WEX, and I was like, I love that. That's great. So it's been a very community driven event. But our mission has always been to create that diverse and inclusive community, and empower you to take action.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's in different cities now. Like you started with just one in 2016. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it started in South Florida, where I was living at the time, in 2016. But before we even hosted our first event in 2016, I put a down payment on the DC Convention Center. So
Oh,
this is
really?
before I even tested the idea. Before. So we hosted DC May of 2017,
Okay.
and people always, say why DC, or like why'd you like go for it before even seeing how the first event would go forward with. And I knew that I wanted WEX to be more than just an event and really solidify us as a place where women are creating real change, and
Yeah.
starting on the individual level, right? I believe that if you create real change in your life, then you're going to have that ripple effect of change. I
Yeah.
believe that when more people are going after what they love, the world becomes a better place.
Yeah.
And so I'm always focused on that one. I always say, like, my goal is to make a difference in at least one person's life every single day.
Yeah.
And with WEX, I saw an opportunity to multiply that one person in that one day by thousands.
Yeah.
And DC, I thought, was such a great opportunity because, one, DC is where real change is made. Two, it was during the election year between Trump and Hillary. And I was like, all right, well, Hillary's going to get inaugurated, and then, we'll come in. Obviously, turn of events. But what happened was so pivotal for WEX because um, after Trump was elected, and whether, whatever your background for politics, but after Trump was elected, people started taking a more individual approach to create change. And I
Yeah.
think that was an amazing thing that happened. Instead of saying, oh no, this is too big for me, I can't do anything to help the environment. I can't do anything to help gender equality. But now after that, people started to really create change and say, I need to step up. I mean, right after we saw the Women's March. So WEX was started before the Women's March, before the Me Too movement, before the Time's Up movement, and all of this came about afterwards. And so it was a very interesting time how it all like unfolded.
Yeah, I think it's perfect timing. I'm just, in so many aspects of life, like you said, the evolution of women. I've been talking to my kids about how someday they're going to look at the history books and it's going to have a chapter on coronavirus. But also, I think it's true that there's going to
Yeah.
be a chapter about, the 2010s and the 2020s and how women got a new level of voice with those things that you're talking about. So what perfect timing on that. And so now, we'll say coronavirus is crazy. So who knows? But what's your plan 2021? How many different cities are you hoping to be in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're looking at a few different options regarding our strategy to move forward.
Yeah.
And what that means is we're not necessarily looking for more cities with the same event model. I know DC is definitely a city we're highly invested in to grow. We have the most global attendees come and fly in, or international attendees, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
fly in for DC. And then we just hosted our first event in Los Angeles this beginning of this year, and that was a big success. But regarding the
And
goal
North
for
Carolina this year,
2021,
right?
yes, in North Carolina. And so definitely we are going to continue to grow in those cities, and possibly add more cities, but they may be a smaller concept of WEX. It may be a deeper dive into one topic.
Okay.
So at WEX right now, it's a lot of different topics, and it's really focused on networking. It's really focused on connection, right? What's that one connection you can make by attending WEX? And so we hope that becomes, the global event where everyone meets up together. And then there's might be some smaller events in
Yeah.
different cities where you could dive deeper.
Yeah.
And then we're also been focused on launching a digital platform to continue that education, continue that connection. And this was, planned before coronavirus, but
Yeah.
now it just gives us even more a reason and more time to really launch it this year earlier than expected.
Yeah. Okay, so when you do a WEX in each of those cities, you also do a lot of publicity in that area. You get on news outlets. I'm assuming like radio also. But then you also talked about in your past that you got these big names to give you the definition of perfection. I feel like so many people, with this idea of stop just talking about it, actually do it with our kind of our theme of our podcast. People sometimes are like, oh man, I wish I could, I have a good, maybe you released a book, maybe you've got something exciting that you want to promote. How do you get on those? How do you get people to tell you what they think perfection is if they're a big name? Or how do you get on these radio things? I know so many people are like, they just think that that's such a far off thing, but you're a great example of no, it's totally doable. So how do you do that?
Yeah, definitely. So I've done it in many different ways. So I've done it through hiring a publicist. I've done it through being my own publicist. I've done it through a family friend calling on behalf of me. So there's a lot of different avenues. So that's the first thing I want people to understand, that it's not just all or nothing. And then also I got publicity before I had money to hire a publicist. So
Yeah.
it's not like you need to invest a lot. So how I started was I literally would craft pitches and just pitch myself as much as possible to all different editors, to people on television. I use Twitter is a really powerful platform in the news media landscape. Even just last week, I was on the news virtually,
Yeah.
and I got that spot from just tweeting someone. So, like, I tweeted a news anchor, and I said, like, here's my experience as someone with, compromised immune system, and I would love to share what I'm doing to bring positivity from home in Raleigh. And they DM me and they said, when can you come on live? So that was just through tweeting someone.
Yeah.
Again, you could find in, don't tweet the station, tweet the individual news anchors, because they're looking for stories as
Interesting.
well. And then some other ways, there's different ways to craft your pitch to get noticed. I will say, which is interesting because I teach public speaking through my training, and all
Right.
of it is how to get booked as a speaker, because that's like the number one thing that holds people back. But that pitch that I craft for speakers could be used for, getting an investor on the phone, getting so the press on the phone. It's the same thing. You just,
Yeah.
change it up a little bit. But the number one thing is to show value to them first. Like, even the editor of Entrepreneur Magazine, like, he talks about this. He says, like, if you really want to get noticed by him or a response, which I've had email correspondence with him about this. It's showing him value. So he has a personal newsletter that he sends out, and he puts a lot of time and effort into that.
Yeah.
You sign up for his personal newsletter, then you respond to him like, oh my gosh, I loved what you said about X, Y, and Z, or obviously a more
Yeah.
thoughtful interaction than
Yeah.
that. You maybe comment back to his LinkedIn post. Again, when you show value to people on the things that they're taking time to put out there,
Yeah.
they're going to recognize you more. So then when your email comes through, when your DM comes through, they've already seen your
Right.
handle.
Yeah.
And so that's a big way that I've gotten press, as well as all just different speakers or noticed in different aspects of my journey.
Yeah, and I love that. I think that that's so important to remember, that it wasn't the first, you didn't just pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, can I get on?" Oh, like it
Right?
wasn't
Yeah,
like
no.
some miracle. So I feel like especially in this, why not me, to get on a media outlet, that it's not like, oh, like it takes a lot to make the first jump to even do something, but remember that it's going to take a few touches. The other day I got one. After one touch I was like, whoa, that was awesome. Okay.
Nice.
Like, it was so
Yeah.
rare that it was like, okay. But to remember that it's like you said, to go through different avenues also, and use that creativity, but also make a connection and show them that value. I think that's awesome.
Yes, and follow up is key. Like, the follow up game, I can't tell you how many times I get DMs or emails and it's one, and maybe I missed it or I didn't see it, or like, even especially DMs, like, it's not a good
Yeah.
way to organize Instagram DMs. But
Yeah.
if someone followed up to their original email, then I'm going to see it and I'm going
Yeah.
to respond, because you have to remember, people are busy, and if you're trying to contact them, most likely someone else is trying to contact them too.
Yeah.
And so do not like have a tracking system. I have a complete tracking system for outreach, follow up, third follow up, and the whole timeline of it.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, you talked about how you had like a family friend or something once, like trained them to be your publicist. I did a
Yes.
similar thing that I was like, one of my friends was looking for a job and I'm like, you're going to be awesome at this. Like, let's do this. And then like, she got really like, she's a powerhouse, but after a month, she's like, that's not working. I'm like, it's okay. It takes time, like it takes the follow, it takes the,
Mm-hmm.
that, or, that persistence. So yeah. Okay. So if you had one bit of advice to people who are thinking about maybe being a public speaker, maybe putting on big events, maybe getting on a media outlet, whatever it is, what would be your advice to someone, or yourself 15 years ago or whatever?
Well, definitely to myself, just start. But for anyone listening, I mean, of course you've heard the expression like start with why and really understand why you're doing what you're doing. But the number one thing is don't get stuck in the research zone. I see so many people researching, like, should I do this? Like how to be a public speaker, the pros and cons of putting on an event, obviously the plan and strategy is important, but you're never going to know if you truly like it or if it's in aligned with your purpose until you take action.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big advocate around the MVP, right? In tech, everyone has a minimal viable product. They don't put out a full concept of an app, they put an MVP out. And so I do that with anything. Because if you invest so much time and years of research or months, and then you spend so much time developing it, whatever it may be, and then you put it out there and you realize like your audience didn't even want this, then it's not going to do anything for you. So throw a bunch of stuff on the wall, see what sticks. But the number one thing is to put something out there. Does not need to be perfect. You don't need to know all the answers. When I first started Wex, I did not know anything about the events industry. I didn't even know what RFP meant, which
Yeah.
is request for proposal.
Yeah.
And this word was like thrown around every single day. And I was like, what is
You're
RFP?
like, oh,
Like,
Google.
yeah.
Yes.
And I didn't know like how to do security, set decorator, catering, venues. Like I didn't know any of it. I learned as I went, but I would not be where I am today if I waited and waited and waited. So I say just go for it.
I love that. And I love how you talked about not being, focus so much on the why that you don't need to stress about the how, and like just
Mm-hmm.
really let that passion guide. I think that's awesome. Alexa, you're awesome. I love talking with you. Tell us where they can find you. How do they follow you? Is there a Facebook group, or is there Instagram or your website? Where should we go?
Definitely. So I'm Alexa Rose Carlin all over social media. Instagram is my number one platform, along with actually TikTok now. And then for Wex, we are Women Empower X. It's just the letter X all over social media. And we do have a Facebook group. And it's just if you go on to Woman Empower X community on Facebook, you'll find us there. And there's tons of I think we're over 2,000 women now, maybe a little bit more, where you can get advice or share what you're doing and get that support. Yeah, that's where you could connect with us.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, best of luck. Can't wait to see, be at one of your another event here soon.
Thank you so much.